Hello, and this is another pathetic project by OldSparky. Um, this is my desktop. Actually, on the screen now, you can see my lovely old dog Dixie Lee. I'm afraid she passed away earlier this year. What a great dog, our Dixie. Okay, well, this project is to make a MoonCrib. I've already got one on the screen there. This is my granddaughter who had seen this online and fell in love with it, and I thought, surely I can make something like that. So this is going to be my project, my version of the MoonCrib. If you're wondering what I might look like, this is me. I look something like this. If you're wondering who I might remind you of, it's maybe him, Uncle Albert from Only Fools and Horses. Not really, surely. Anyway, on with the show. And first thing I did was buy some MDF 18mm medium density fiberboard. So this is what I was going to make the main sides of the MoonCrib out of, and the first thing was to decide what size it would be, and those are the sizes I picked. As with all of my projects, it tends to evolve more than is planned, so I decided what might be a good size and then made it. So marked it out, just got a bit of wood of the right dimensions, had a center, and as you can see, stuck a pencil in the other end and drew a circle. So this was be the outline of my moon shape. I had another cunning plan, which was, why don't I fix the jigsaw to the end of that same piece of wood and have it go around the same circle, the same centers. No, that didn't work. In fact, if you can see, there's the center line where the pencil was to go, and of course there's a certain distance to the blade. So although it started on the line, it soon veered away. So, as I say, these things tend to evolve. So it was just hand cut. And there's one half of the MoonCrib. There's one moon cut out. And with a bit more work, there was the second one. Okay, then I decided to brace them with a doweling. That's 28mm dowel. You can see obviously the 3 in position here. I eventually put 2 more for to make it more sturdy. So there's 5 in total. It fairly well filled my little workshop. So most of the work was done outside. Luckily it was mostly nice weather. If it did rain, I had to scurry back inside with the wood stock. You can see also here, this was the base I made, and that was the base for the MoonCrib. More of the 28mm doweling, and you can imagine when the moon sits in this, it could rock, and that was one of my early plans. You could actually rock it more vertical or more horizontal. But then when I sort of thought seriously about it, the bed level where the mattress would go would also rock up and down. Didn't want to tip the baby out. So what I did was I cut notches out of the moon shape, so that although it would rock into a position where these notches lined, and that would be its permanent position. You can see this vertical line, horizontal should I say, this horizontal line here is the baseline for the mattress. So fitted 2 runners here to support the mattress base, and is the mattress base in position. I reused a project I had going earlier. This is carpet glued on top of ply. Across here you can actually see a piano hinge. This was in fact a door to cover my electric meter in its first outing. Now it's a nice hinge to lift this door up, and underneath can be stored bedding, and in fact I keep the battery pack for some LED lighting that you'll see later. That was all stored in there. Next, mark out some the cutouts, some stars and moons, and then there's the first star cutout, just using a jigsaw. Tied it up with a file and sandpaper. There's all the stars and the moon cut out on one side, and here drillings for LED lighting. There'll be 25 LEDs on this side and 25 on the other side. I decided to repurpose this, which is really a garden outside. There we go, weather resistant solar panel that drives 50 white LEDs. I kind of repurposed it. I just cut the LEDs out of it. It was to run on one AA nickel metal hydride battery, rechargeable. I used initially 6 volts worth of AA's, and ultimately, as you'll see, a power bank, a USB power bank, to drive these 50 LEDs. So here's the LEDs in position. I just needed a way to fix the cable on the outside, and then there'll be cladding going on top of that. My cunning plan initially was to use a hot glue gun, and here you can see I just applied glue to fix the LEDs on the back side. Unfortunately, and again how my projects tend to evolve, the glue was it dried a lot harder than I imagined, so we're now left with like a bump of glue, and then the cladding wasn't going to go on neatly. So I thought, okay, I'll break these back out again and use staples just to staple the cable down flat. That seems like a good idea at the time, except you can see what damage the staples did to the wiring. First time I turned it on, there was short circuits, there was breaks in the cable where there was open circuits, so that didn't work at all. Next cunning plan was to use plastic clips and staple those down to trap the cables. These are just from cable ties, just snipped to length. So I had plenty of cable ties, snipped them into strips, and they were stapled down. Next problem. When I had to work outside, the weather started to get a little bit cooler. As soon as I stapled the clips on, they shattered. The plastic was at a temperature so that the shock of the staple going in just broke the plastic. Hence a boil of warm water. So warm the plastic up before I apply it, and yeah, and that seemed to work. There's one side complete, and the cladding could start. Tongue and groove pine, just cut to shape. I would just place it on and then mark around, and with either my bandsaw and tied it with sandpaper, etc. So there's the cladding further in position, and ultimately this side with all the cladding in place. There's all the board patterns I eventually made. So I would glue them in position, and there they are in the shed, Dad's shed. So although there may not be perfectly to size, I was going to trim the outside with either sandpaper or at one point I used my electric planer just to take the edges off. Then it was time to do the other side. There's all the boards in place. Okay, then I got to get a new toy. This is my new solder station, hot air gun station. So the soldering iron and the hot air gun are both, you can control the temperature. It also has a little power pack on it. I can have voltage for testing, and I can measure voltage during testing. There's a little ammeter and a digital voltmeter. So that was a little treat for myself because I needed to solder the LEDs. Then it came to deciding on current limit resistors for the LEDs, and I calculated some values, and these meters are measuring the current through the circuit and the voltage across the LEDs. This is that power bank, by the way, a 5000 milliampere hour power bank that I eventually used. I had an idea that I would have a high and low setting. So the way I did that was to go through one resistor and either short it out by the switch, would have only that one resistor in circuit, or if you open the switch then it would add those resistors in circuit. Okay, so I would have a high and a low setting for the LEDs. This was the wiring I eventually went for. You can see if you follow the circuit here, there's the positive through the on-off switch, through the single resistor, through the switch if it's in that position, if it's shorted out, the high-low switch, and then out to the positive of the LEDs and back to negative. So here we only have one resistor, the 10 ohm in series, so that's a higher setting. You can see then if you switch the high-low switch across and open circuited the switch, you're then going to have a circuit through the one resistor and then it has to go through the other resistor. I actually had 200 ohm resistors in parallel to give me 50 ohms. So on the low setting there was 60 ohms in circuit. Here's the circuit diagram. Okay, through the on-off switch, through the 10 ohms, bypass those in the high setting to the LEDs, or if you open that switch you're then going to go through those in series. So 60 ohms or 10 ohms for the high and low. There's the little switch box itself, on, off, high, low, and my test LEDs. I bought another set just to set these values up and test it. Then came the outer cladding, the same tongue and groove board, just screwed in position around the outside, and we're nearly there. Here I'd put some plastic capping over this edge. You can imagine you would see the edge of the tongue and groove board. It tidied it up quite a lot. There's the trapdoor open, and there's my initial idea of a supply. 6 volts worth of AA batteries in a little battery pack. You'll see later on I went for a USB power bank, so that meant that they didn't have to buy batteries, they could just recharge this. Also the higher capacity, so it's 5 ampere hours, so it should last quite a while. I added a fuse in series to give it short circuit protection, and the LEDs that are on. There's just a close-up of the power bank. So you can see we've got this inline fuse and a spare. So when they need to charge this up, they'll just unplug this supply to the LEDs and plug this into a charge point, USB. And there's the finished item. So with the mattress in place and baby bedding. And there's the lighting. I think that was in the high setting. And there's the new arrival in the MoonCrib. This is baby Layla Grace, my great granddaughter now. Sleep tight.